Speaking of pitching, let me get to my guy, one of the most underrated performers from those late 90s New York Mets, and that's Pat Mahomes. Pat, how you doing, pal?
Pat, how you doing, E?
We're doing great. Can I ask you one quick question? Very important. When
Yes,
Al Leiter, who I love, when he crapped the bed in Game 6 of the NLCS, and you came in down 4-0 to that mess, and then you just calmly said, I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to get a big double play against Walt Weiss. I'm going to give you 4 scoreless innings, and I'm going to give this offense a chance to come back. Like, what's going through your mind as you went through a situation like that?
Well, what was funny was I knew that Al was going to pitch, on short rest, and I had pitched both the games before that. And, and we had some guys that were up that hadn't pitched, like Or Hershiser, I think Octavio Dotel, and a couple of guys that hadn't pitched in that series. And I was sitting down there with Al Jackson, rest in peace. I was sitting down there talking to him because we'd always get down there early, and I was talking to him. I was like, hey, who you think will be the first guy to go in today? And he goes, probably you. And I was like, well, rip for real? And at the time, Al was struggling. A couple guys were on base, and then another guy got on base, and the phone rang, and sure enough, it was me. So I was like, oh, shit, I hope I got something that I can, can give him, because I pitched 2 innings, I think, the day before. And I just, when I went out on the field and you see all those people, cheering and yelling and knowing the situation we was in, I was just like, just try to keep us where we are, and hopefully we could come back and maybe take the lead and maybe win that game.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I mean, here's the thing. When I think about you, Pat, I think obviously it's your baseball career, but also your kids. And I'm not even talking about the one everybody wants to talk about. Your other son, Graham, plays football at Brown, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
My son is at Brown. Jason Barber is at Brown. So we share a young kids university right now. How's he doing up there?
Yeah, he's doing good. He's in the portal right now, and he's got a couple of offers. I don't know exactly what he's going to do yet, if he's going to go back or if he's going to take one of these offers. But he was just down here with me the last 2.5 weeks training and working out with a receivers coach and everything. And we visited a few universities, Rice being one that was, very interested. And I think they're going to do something, and some others. So he'll just have to make a big boy decision and decide something. But the funny thing about it, I went to the game in Columbia when they played at Columbia.
Yeah.
And his mom was telling me that your son went there.
Yeah. No, I mean, I understand why he's transferring, though, Pat, because they're loaded with wide receivers. And so my son had 1 catch all season long, which brings me to a question. Like, raising kids, that turn out to be athletes, it's something obviously I did, and I wonder, like, did you have a process? Did you think about what they were going to get into? You did everything in high school like I did, but what was the process like raising those kids?
Well, honestly, I knew Patrick was pretty special from the beginning. At a very young age, when he was like 4 or 5, when he was going to the stadium with me up there at Shea, and I started taking him out on the field and just watching him and just watching how he observed people in the clubhouse and watching how, he just took everything in and wasn't afraid. So I knew we had a chance. So I really started working with him on different stuff, never, putting any pressure on him, just letting him play them all, have fun playing them all. I didn't, I never specialized, hey, you need to play this, you need to play that. Even though it was obvious he was better in some of the other ones than he was at the other one, but he was good in all of them. And I just, started that process. And then once he started playing in junior high, he started playing a little football. And that was when he really first started playing football a little bit. And I would just treat him like he was an athlete, So after the game, I would bring him home, and I tell him go in there and take a shower, and he'd go shower up, and then he'd come to the table, and I'd interview him about stuff in the game,
Get out
trying
of here.
trying to teach him how to, talk to the media, how to answer the questions, this and that and this and that. And I mean, it all was just natural for him. I mean, he just came on, and then I thought football was kind of in the rear mirror, but his junior year he got to be the starting quarterback. He had started his freshman and sophomore year as a safety, and was actually getting recruited as a safety, which made no sense at all. And then he just fell in love with football, and he made like I said, another big boy decision and decide whether he was going to go in the draft or he was going to go play football at Tech, and he decided to go to Tech, and that's where we went. And as far as the other ones, I just kind of same kind of process right now. I kind of let them do their own thing. Jackson played basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Graham, he got a scholarship to Stephen F. Austin. Graham, he played football, basketball. He gave up baseball like in 10th grade. And then my two girls, they're doing volleyball, softball, basketball. They're doing it all too. So
oh man, you like me.
I just kind of watch back, sit back and watch.
Hey, you're like me. I got 6. You got 5. So it keeps you busy.
I got 5 of them.
But I wonder, Pat, because there's always pressure when your dad was a professional athlete. Like people just expect you to be great, and it's not easy, I think, for kids because they start to feel it at some point. Like how do you manage that side of it? And obviously he came through it. I'm talking about Patrick came through it. But just in general, like what kind of dad were you managing the expectations of your kids? Because everybody had to talk to you about it.
Well, Patrick, it wasn't that bad. Yeah, everybody knew I played pro baseball, but he was so good at all of them that he didn't really get a lot of flack. I think a lot of people knew that he was going to play something professionally, so he didn't really get a lot of flack. Now, after Patrick went off to college and did the things that he did in his high school career, and then was going to Tech, and they knew he had could have been drafted or whatever. He was drafted, but he could have went straight to pro ball. Now Jackson caught a little bit. He caught a little bit about it. Wasn't about me more so. It was more about Patrick.
Yeah.
He would get the chance at the basketball games. You're not Patrick. This stuff like that.
Oh, geez.
But it seemed like it motivated him. I mean, he grew a lot. He decided he was going to do basketball instead of the other. He played the others too, but once he got to high school, he said, "Well, I'm going to play basketball. I want to do something different than y'all." And so he went on. But then once he got out, I mean, either you love it or you don't. So he liked playing basketball. He didn't love basketball, so he stopped. Pretty quick. And now Graham, he's kind of like Patrick. He's all in. With it from the beginning, but he's not really. They don't really talk about him a lot. Now the girls don't have no idea yet.
We're talking to Pat Mahomes. I'm curious because when I first saw your son play in college, and I still think of him this way, I was like, "That's Pat Mahomes' son." Because I think of you. I grew up watching you pitch, and I envisioned my favorite football team, the Jets, drafting him, and they could have. Instead, they drafted Jamal Adams. Do you think? If your son is drafted by the crappy Jets, and they were crappy, I have to admit, there was no Andy Reid there. So he wouldn't have had the greatest coaching in the world. How do you think that would have played out? A, the market of New York, and then B, not being surrounded by maybe one of the greatest coaches of all time. I think he would have overcome it and still been great. What's your thoughts on what that kind of alternate universe could have looked like?
I think he would have been. I think he would have been fine eventually. I think a lot of people. They kind of overlooked the fact that he got to sit that year and learn from Alex and learn how professional quarterbacks went about their business, learn how to study, learn how to do that type of stuff. Yeah, Andy was great, and Andy, him and Andy are a match made in heaven together. But Patrick, he still played the same kind of football. I think Andy kind of adapted to his style a little bit more because he saw how he played it in college. So, Andy with his great mind and scheming the plays, and Patrick being able to do some of the things that he could do that a lot of people, really don't do or is seen as bad habits to do. He can do that type of stuff and get away with it. I just think it just worked out great. But, yeah, I think he'd have been all right wherever he went.
All right, this is the most important question I got to ask you today. So you're in the booth, last weekend, watching the game. You see you with your arms crossed. You got Jason Kelsey, shirtless, chugging beers. Taylor Swift's in there. And I see you just look over your shoulder. Like, what the hell is wrong with you people? What was that booth like? I mean, it had to be crazy up there.
Well, you know what's crazy is that the people thought that was me, but it wasn't me.
Was it?
No, I was actually 2 booths down. But as soon as he started doing that, I was looking down and I saw him. And just so happened, some point in the game, we both happened to be in the bathroom at the same time, and I've known him, you know, for quite some time.
Right.
Travis is like another son to me,
of course.
So I've been around him a lot and everything. And I've been in the booth with Taylor before, and she was very nice and genuine and everything. So I went over there and hung out with him a little bit, you know. After the game, after we had won, I hung out with him a little bit and said hi and all that. But those are some fun guys. I mean, if you think Jason's wild, you ought to see Travis.
Imagine. What's Tay-Tay like? Taylor Swift. I'm sure you've met her a few times.
Yeah, she's nice. Actually, very down to earth. I thought, you know, somebody that famous, you know, you never know how that's going to go. So first time I met her, I kind of walked up to her to introduce myself, and she said, "Yeah, I know who you are. I watched that quarterback series. I know you're his dad." And she thanked me for letting her be in the suite that day. And I was like, "Well, it ain't my suite, but you know,
I'll take
it's Patrick and Brittany's suite, you know." So I mean, if you want to thank anybody, you should thank them. But she was nice. Took a couple pictures with my wife and. With my daughter. My daughter happened to be at that game, so it made her day, you know, and everything. But yeah, she's very down there person.
Yeah, no, it seems like it. I mean, obviously she wouldn't be with Patrick or with Travis and hanging out at football games if she wasn't. You know, your son he's already being talked about as potentially the greatest quarterback ever. And I don't know if you saw that coming. I mean, I don't know if I did because I didn't follow him that closely at Texas Tech, but after he got going, it just seems like, and I heard this word a couple of times this past week, and it seems right. It just feels inevitable, right? It feels like no matter what happens or what's going on around him, he's going to find a way. Was he always that way?
Well, I mean, you know how it is. I mean, I don't think nobody saw it coming per se, saw him having that much success, you know, that early on, you know, because when he hit it, he kind of hit it running, and he didn't look back. And, of course, you know, he had that big year with the 50 and 50 and winning the MVP. And then, you know, that builds confidence. You know how an athlete is. Once you achieve some confidence, you know, it goes a long way into what you do from here on there if you do it the right way. You know, if you don't get big-headed, if you don't start believing everything you hear, you know, and you keep working and putting the work in, then, you know, good things more than less will happen. But as far as I don't never see him nervous. I saw him one time. The one time I ever saw him nervous was right before halftime of that Bengals game when they were trying to go in. They had like 8 seconds or something left, and he ended up throwing the ball short to Tyreek, and they got tackled, and he ended up not getting anything. Yeah. And I saw him looking and looked to call a timeout, and I'm like, y'all don't have any timeouts. And, you know, I've never seen him where he didn't know where the situation was. Yeah. You know, because even like in the 13-second game, you know, when they come back and got that, you know, I'm sitting in the booth, and I'm always looking down there because I know he looks up at me, and I'm trying to tell him little stuff, and, you know, and you know, during the game and everything. So I always look down. And when they scored, the Bills did, I looked right down to the bench right then, and all he did was sit there and put his helmet on. So I was like, okay, we're good, I guess. I mean, you know, so he had like it wasn't that big of a deal. So, you know, he's had a couple of uncharacteristic moments this year, you know, with the offsides and yelling at the referees and stuff like that. But for the most part, you know, he may be a little excited and nervous on the inside, but on the outside, you know, you can't see it.
Do you think, we're talking to Pat Mahomes, I mean, I'm sitting next to a guy in Tiki who made a decision in the prime of his career, because you were still playing awesome, Tiki. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore, and I respect the hell out of it. With your son, do you get this vibe that he wants to do this as long as possible like a Tom Brady? Or can you see him 5 or 6 years from now being like, man, I've accomplished everything. I'm done.
Yeah, well, I mean, I watch Tiki. I watch Tiki all the time. He's over in New York, and I was a big Cowboy fan, so I watched him all the time. And I know he was in his prime and whatever when he decided to stop. Patrick, ever since I could remember when he was 7, he would always tell me, I'd go out there and I'd play him in all the different sports, and I wouldn't let up on him. I'd beat him, and it would kill him. And he would always tell me, he said, I'm gonna be better than you in everything. I'm gonna be better than you. So he had that drive, from a long time out. But I definitely think it's gonna be hard to get that jersey off of it. He has a lot of things I think he has in mind as goals, and I think Tom kind of gave a blueprint for quarterbacks on how you can play this game a long time and with the rules and all the different stuff. I could see him playing, at least another 10, 12 years. So, I mean, without injuries, but
sure.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to get him up. I just couldn't imagine him sitting at home. I mean, he's got to be competitive on something, It's in the off season, it's golf, it's basketball, If he's playing checkers, which he wants to beat you, so I just can't see him sitting at home and just chilling.
Yeah, no, I can't see that either. One of the cool things about this game, Pat, is that these are two black quarterbacks, MVP quarterbacks, because Lamar won one, obviously Pat's won a couple, in the championship game, and it highlights the lack of ubiquity. Like, we used to think that you got to be this way to be a quarterback. You got to be in the pocket, stand up, throw it, look a certain way. It's different now, and your son and Lamar on the other side of this game they're awesome examples because they're just not the same.
Yeah, but I mean, they're doing it. I mean, they're a big reason for why it's going like it is. You got to get athletic. I mean, guys are more athletic now. The quarterback has to be more athletic. You're not going to be able to just sit back there in that pocket.
Right.
Now, it's crazy that you hear that. We heard that all our lives about it. You had to be a certain way to play the position. And what's crazy about it is when Patrick was starting his junior year, and he was doing a lot of stuff that he does now, believe it or not. He's throwing balls left-handed, he's doing no-look passes and stuff. And I played quarterback, and I had offers and stuff to play quarterback at college, D1 and all that, and I played the way they played, kind of, That was the way I thought you had to play it. But I would always sit back after those games, and I'd be sitting back, and I would say to myself, I'd go, I don't know if this is going to translate. I don't know if it's going to translate. And then, he had the big senior year, and then he went to Tech, and then he came in right away, after about halfway through the season, started doing the same stuff he was doing in high school and stuff. And I'm still sitting there going, is this going to translate to the NFL? And then once he started doing it up there, I was like, okay, well, maybe he knows what he's doing. So I'm just going to leave it alone.
Right. Funny. I think you said it right earlier, Pat, is that Andy Reid adapted to him. We were having this conversation earlier. The best coaches don't try to fit players into their mold. They just look at what they do best, and then they create systems around that, right? That's how you become successful.
Oh, what was crazy about it, because I envisioned it, looking back, I envisioned it as my career when I came up. I had a lot of stuff that you weren't supposed to do, and I did all the time. And I had a manager, Tom Kelly, at the time, that he didn't really go for that. He's more of an old school manager, and he didn't want you talking trash or doing this and that. And, that's all I'd ever known. Coming up through the minor leagues, I had the same manager every year. He pretty much let me do, what I did and everything. And I struggled. I struggled a lot at first. I had a good year in '94. But then when I got with the Mets and I got with Bobby Valentine, which was, a lot of I guess former players of his didn't really like him. Me and him fit like a glove. And so, it was like I was able to get all of my ability out because I knew that guy had confidence in me and that he was going to, he knew I was going to make some mistakes, here or there. But he wasn't going to try to change me. He was going to let me go out and do what I did. And And that makes a big difference in an athlete's, confidence. Knowing that you going out there and your manager believes in you, or your play caller believes in you and believe you can do all these things, then you're going to go out there and try that much harder to prove him right.
We're talking to Pat Mahomes. So you're going to be in Baltimore, I assume. Another suite. Will you be in the suite with those crazies for this game, or a different suite?
I hope not, but no, I don't think so. No, Travis normally has his own thing, and Patrick has his own deal too. So, but I imagine if Taylor wants her own Swift, I think she got her own suite. She got her own enough money to get whatever one she wants.
Yeah, she good. Yeah, you don't need to worry about her.
Well, good luck. Enjoy the game.
Right.
I'm rooting for you. Tiki's not, by the way. Tiki's rooting for the Ravens.
Stop it.
Oh, you are you not?
I just kinda,
You could be honest with Pat. It's all right.
I just kind of I like Lamar's journey.
It's all right.
It's all right.
By the way, I have no dog in the fight either way.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how it turns out. I know he's going to be ready to go. I know Lamar's going to be ready to go, and it's going to be a great game. At least the weather will be a little bit warmer.
Yeah, it's true. And by the way, I want to keep an eye on Graham to see where he lands up, because he had a hell of a season last year, 540 so yards and 6 or so touchdowns. Right, he can be an asset somewhere, so I'll keep an eye on where he ends up. All
right, then. Sounds good.
Thank you, Pat. We appreciate it.
Good chatting with you.
Pat Mahomes Sr., the father of Patrick Mahomes. There were two things he said. Sometimes when you talk to somebody, you hear things and they register in your brain like, oh. So there are two things that jump out at me. One is about football. The other one is about Taylor Swift. Which one would you like to hear first?
Taylor Swift, of course.
Taylor Swift watched the quarterback series on Netflix?
I know.
How about that?
Coming educated on the game. That's awesome.
Taylor Swift goes up to Pat Mahomes and says, I know who you are. I watched the Netflix series.
By the way, that Netflix series is good.
It's a very good series, but that shows, you know what that shows? You better be careful now.
Studying.
She's really into Travis Kelce. To where she's watching a documentary about Travis Kelce's teammate, essentially. Like, that shows she's committed to learning about football and learning about what makes her man tick.
I bet she already knew a little bit about football.
You think so?